Every year, more than 5 million tons of cocoa beans travel across the globe before being transformed into one of the world's most beloved foods. Yet behind every simple chocolate bar lies an incredible journey that begins long before the factory. For months, colorful fruits grow directly from the trunk of a tropical tree. Once harvested, they undergo a remarkable series of natural and industrial processes that completely transform their flavor. The surprising part? A fresh cocoa bean tastes almost nothing like chocolate. Its flavor is bitter, vegetal, and highly astringent. So how does a seed hidden inside a tropical fruit become the smooth, glossy chocolate that melts in your mouth? Today, we're following that incredible journey. From cocoa pod to chocolate bar, everything begins with a rather modest-looking tree, Theobroma cacao. Its scientific name literally means food of the gods. Unlike most fruit trees, the cocoa tree has a fascinating characteristic. Its flowers and fruits don't grow on the tips of its branches. Instead, they grow directly from the trunk and the main branches. Each tree can produce dozens of cocoa pods every year. Despite producing thousands of tiny flowers, only a small percentage will actually become fruit. Cocoa trees require very specific growing conditions. They thrive in warm, humid, tropical climates located roughly 20 degrees north and south of the equator. This region is often called the Cocoa Belt. Today, nearly 70% of the world's cocoa is produced in West Africa, especially in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. Other major producers include Ecuador, Brazil, Cameroon, Nigeria, and Indonesia. A young cocoa tree usually takes between 3 and 5 years before producing its first significant harvest. Once mature, it can continue producing cocoa for several decades. Although many plantations regularly replace older trees to maintain high yields, unlike many modern crops, cocoa harvesting is still performed almost entirely by hand. The pods don't ripen at the same time. Farmers must walk through their plantations several times a year, carefully selecting only the ripe fruit. Depending on the variety, the pods gradually change color as they mature. Some turn from green to bright yellow. Others become deep orange or crimson red. Using a machete or a long-handled harvesting knife, workers carefully cut each pod from the tree. This may seem simple, but it requires considerable skill. Each cocoa pod weighs anywhere from 300 grams to well over 1 kilogram. Inside, it contains a thick white pulp surrounding the precious cocoa beans. Each pod typically holds between 30 and 50 beans. These seeds will eventually become chocolate. Only a few hours after harvesting, the pods are opened. Timing is important. Leaving them closed for too long under the tropical heat can quickly reduce bean quality. Workers split the pods open using wooden clubs or machetes, taking care not to damage the beans inside. As the shell breaks apart, it reveals a thick, creamy white pulp. Surprisingly, this pulp is incredibly sweet. In several cocoa-producing countries, it's enjoyed fresh or even processed into juice and other beverages. The beans are carefully removed by hand before being gathered into large baskets or wooden fermentation boxes. This marks the beginning of what is arguably the most important stage in the entire chocolate-making process. Without fermentation, there would be no chocolate. Fresh cocoa beans contain very few of the flavors we associate with chocolate. Natural yeasts immediately begin feeding on the sugary pulp surrounding the beans. Soon afterward, different species of bacteria take over. As these microorganisms work, the temperature inside the pile rises dramatically. It can exceed 50 degrees Celsius or 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Every day, farmers turn the beans to ensure an even fermentation. Inside each bean, hundreds of chemical reactions begin taking place. Cells break down, proteins are transformed, sugars evolve, and the first flavor precursors that will eventually become chocolate are created. Depending on the cocoa variety and the desired flavor profile, fermentation usually lasts between 5 and 7 days. By the end of the process, the beans have completely changed. Their color has turned brown, and for the very first time, their aroma begins to resemble chocolate. Once fermentation is complete, the beans still contain far too much moisture. If they were stored immediately, mold would quickly develop. To prevent this, farmers spread the beans across large drying patios, raised wooden platforms, or movable drying tables. For several days, the beans are constantly turned by hand. This ensures that every bean dries evenly. In many regions, the tropical sun provides all the heat that's needed. In wetter climates, however, mechanical dryers may assist the process. Little by little, the moisture content drops to around 7%. Before leaving their country of origin, every batch of cocoa undergoes careful inspection. Samples are collected from each lot. Inspectors cut open individual beans to evaluate their internal color and fermentation quality. They also look for mold, insect damage, or signs of poor handling. Moisture levels are measured with specialized instruments. Each shipment is then graded according to internationally recognized quality standards. The finest beans, destined for premium chocolate manufacturers, undergo especially rigorous selection. Once approved, the beans are packed into large jute sacks. Each bag typically weighs around 60 kilograms, or 130 pounds. Thousands of these sacks are stacked inside warehouses before being loaded into shipping containers. Then begins a journey that may last several weeks. Every year, millions of tons of cocoa cross the oceans toward Europe, North America, and Asia. Throughout the voyage, temperature and humidity must be carefully controlled. Poor ventilation could lead to condensation, ruining an entire shipment. Eventually, the ships arrive at major cocoa processing ports. The beans are unloaded and transported to chocolate factories around the world. Despite everything they've been through, they still don't look much like chocolate. The most dramatic transformation is only just beginning. After spending several weeks crossing the oceans, the cocoa beans finally arrive at processing facilities. Another round of quality inspections begins. Technicians collect samples from every shipment. They measure the moisture content, inspect the size and uniformity of the beans, check for impurities, and evaluate their overall quality. Now, the industrial journey can truly begin. Although the beans have already been inspected, they still contain small impurities collected during harvesting and transportation. Tiny stones, dust, plant fibers. The beans travel through a series of sophisticated cleaning machines. The clean beans enter massive industrial roasters where they're heated to temperatures ranging from 110 to 150 degrees Celsius, or approximately 230 to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Depending on the cocoa variety and the desired flavor profile, roasting can last anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes. And subtle fruity flavors begin to emerge. Every chocolate manufacturer carefully adjusts the roasting temperature and duration. The entire factory fills with the unmistakable smell of chocolate. For the first time since the harvest, the beans truly smell like chocolate. After roasting, the beans are cooled before moving on to the next stage. Specialized machines crack their now fragile shells into smaller pieces. The cracked mixture now passes through a machine called a winnower. Its principle is surprisingly simple. The heavier cocoa nibs fall into separate collection bins. By the end of the process, almost every piece of shell has been removed. Rather than being discarded, the shells are often recycled. Cocoa nibs contain an extraordinary amount of natural fat. In fact, roughly 50 to 55% of every nib is cocoa butter. As they pass through heavy-duty grinding machines, friction generates heat. The cocoa butter begins to melt. Gradually, the solid nibs transform into a thick, smooth liquid. This product is called cocoa liquor, also known as cocoa mass. At this stage, the chocolate mixture still feels slightly gritty. To achieve its signature smoothness, it passes through a series of large steel rollers. Each roller squeezes the chocolate thinner and thinner. Some luxury chocolate makers continue conching for several days, achieve exceptionally refined flavors. At this point, the chocolate is almost finished. When tempering is done correctly, the chocolate develops all the qualities we love. The tempered chocolate is now poured into molds. These molds immediately begin vibrating. The vibrations remove tiny air bubbles trapped inside the liquid chocolate. As the chocolate cools, it slowly solidifies. It also contracts ever so slightly. Modern production lines can inspect hundreds of chocolate bars every minute. Any product that fails inspection is immediately removed from the line. High-speed machines wrap each bar in protective materials designed to preserve freshness. The packaging protects the chocolate from moisture, light, unwanted odors. Chocolate is one of the few foods where agriculture, chemistry, engineering, and craftsmanship remain inseparably connected. The next time you break off a square of chocolate, take a moment to think about the incredible journey it has taken. It began as a colorful fruit, growing directly from the trunk of a tropical tree. It spent days fermenting beneath banana leaves. It dried under the sun. It crossed entire oceans. Behind every single chocolate bar lies the work of farmers, engineers, scientists, technicians, and chocolatiers, all contributing to one of the world's favorite treats. Perhaps that's the true magic of modern manufacturing. If you enjoy discovering how chocolate is made, let us know in the comments what product you'd like us to explore next.